Active weather rolled into Gore Bay about 40 minutes ago. You're looking at a webcam snapshot from, like I mentioned, a couple minutes ago. But then 30 minutes ago, that's when the thick clouds moved in. The heavy downpours, the strong winds 20 minutes ago and 10 minutes ago. You can see we're advancing the webcam images. So it's a quick-lived storm, this cold front moving through the region. It'll last maybe an hour for you because we do have it spans about 100 kilometers, right? But the squall line, it is bringing down those heavy downpours, the strong winds, and then there's also a risk of pea-sized hail, even a risk of some water spouts the production of them over Lake Huron. Okay, so we do have severe thunderstorm watches in place. This was issued by Environment Canada some time ago, and it just expanded to include the city of Sudbury as well. You're going to get those heavy downpours, that's for sure. Manitoulin Island, you're under that watch as well. And then up and down the shorelines of Lake Huron. So I just want you to be aware that inclement weather, severely active weather is on its way. So just a heads up there. And again, it's only going to last about an hour. It'll clear in behind it, but we're also watching another line of thunderstorms in behind that again. So it's just not a good night for a lot of us weather-wise in southern Ontario. And by the way, the GTA and areas closer, to the Toronto area, you'll be seeing that squall line later through the evening. We're suggesting between 8 and 10 p.m. window, and it'll be a little weaker by the time it arrives. This squall line, or this storm cell rather, that was forewarned a little bit earlier, but it has been losing some of its steam, so that's good news. More like your garden variety thunderstorms across Manitoba. Southern and, more so central and northern portions of Saskatchewan and northern Alberta has been seeing some pop-up thunder showers, and that'll be continuing for today. Also along the foothills, we're seeing pop-up thunder showers, also garden variety, but for you, there's a risk of some hail. Now, let me catch my breath. We're seeing a lot of active weather right across the country. Interior portions of BC seeing some pop-up thunder showers as well. Areas marked in yellow, typical advection fog. We do have cooler air mass over the waters. And the water is actually warmer than the air in St. John's. It's only about 12 degrees there. A different story for you in New Brunswick. It's hot and soupy there. It feels closer to 27 for you in St. John, New Brunswick. And that's where we do have a risk of isolated thunder showers through this region. You only have about a 40% risk. However, we continue to have some watches and warnings in place for areas south of Fredericton because of that line of thunder showers. So here's what's left under your severe thunderstorm watch. Still Grand Manan as well as St. Stephen and parts of Charlotte counties. Just a heads up, still some inclement weather to come, but it will be ramping down eventually. All right, we're taking a look at Kincardine Hour along the shorelines of Lake Huron. It has arrived for some of you already, so take cover. If you know anybody on the water, on the beach, outside in this region, tell them just take cover immediately because these are potentially dangerous storms, damaging storms as well. In fact, stateside, they had actually produced a tornado. Unconfirmed at this point, but there were reports of tornadic activity as a result of this squall line. That's your cold front. That coupled with those really hot and soupy temperatures that we have here in southern Ontario, that could cause some serious problems. We're talking about the potential also for some water spouts, and water spouts sometimes they do make it on land. Not to be fear-mongering, but that's what happened in Godrich a couple years ago. It was a water spout that eventually turned into a tornado, and you know the destruction that caused there. Now here we're talking about very gusty winds, very heavy downpours, the potential for some hail as well in areas marked in yellow. A closer look at more recent radar returns here. If you're in the Sarnia region, it's just on your doorstep right now. We continue to talk about your active weather as your long weekend ramps down here at the Weather Network. You could see that a storm is definitely on its way. Kasia Bodurka with you here with a look at the active weather moving into Ontario, and it could be potentially severe, potentially dangerous weather that we're looking at. This squall line, it's been organizing itself for some time. That's your cold front. That coupled with the hot, soupy temperatures we have going on, and I know you know it. It's feeling like 35 for so many of us. That's going to be sparking up some pretty intense thunderstorms. It already is over Lake Huron. It has been arriving on the shores of Lake Huron already, producing very strong winds, very heavy downpours, maybe small hail as well. We're not ruling that out. And also some rotation over the Great Lakes too. I mean, we've been seeing that before in the past, the production of water spouts. And sometimes water spouts do make it onshore. So if you know anybody on the shores of Lake Huron, tell them to, to take cover immediately. Here's a look at your severe thunderstorm watch that we do have in place up and down the shores as well as northern shores of Lake Superior and Manitoulin Island. I want to take you now to the prairie provinces. These are more garden variety type storms. They're not too severe, but we have been seeing some severe thunderstorm watches and warnings pop up and wind down. All this to say, it's not your ideal long weekend through southern Manitoba and also through the Interlake region. It seems like these thunderstorms, they just keep ramping up, so heavy downpours there. But you know, our meteorologists, they had created this risk map earlier today. They were forecasting this because there is this trough of instability in the region. It's not necessarily hot, so it's not your typical low pressure system of the summer, you know, sparked up by daytime heating. No, that's not necessarily the case. Just a lot of upper level instability. And again, the focus is Manitoba. That's where we're seeing more activity. If you live in the foothills, though, we do have that risk as well for you. You could be seeing some hail, and you know hail can be very damaging. All right, for you in BC, we're starting to see isolated showers up and down the coast, and it's going to become a little bit steadier for you tomorrow in Vancouver. If we do get to have a first day of school there, you'll be packing your umbrellas and your rubber boots, but areas marked in yellow still today could be seeing a non-severe thunder showers. To the other side of the country, it's been this active. I know, Labor Day, we're supposed to take a break today, right? Oh no, no rest for Mother Nature. All right, here's a look at some current storms making their way through southern portions of New Brunswick. We still do have some severe thunderstorm watches in place as a result of that. So Grand Manan still keeping an eye out for you, as well as St. Stephen and parts of Charlotte County. More on your active weather situation as your long weekend winds down here at the Weather Network. Don't go anywhere. It is back to reality for many kids across the country tomorrow morning. And the last thing you want are thunderstorms raining on your last day of your summer vacation. Kasia Bodurka with you here, but we are looking at some severe thunderstorms moving through southern New Brunswick. And they have been lingering through this area pretty much all afternoon. We have been seeing some severe thunderstorm watches and warnings. They've started to drop, actually, so that's good news. But places still under the watch, we do have St. Stephen, Grand Manan, as well as portions of Charlotte County. Now to the Ontario story. This one's a little bit more severe, unfortunately. The storm is so close. It's basically on your doorstep. So we do have some severe thunderstorm watches and warnings now in place. Warnings for you in Sarnia, right where we had that video. Meanwhile, to the north in Elliott Lake, Blind River, Manitoulin Island, your severe thunderstorm watches have dropped. So that's good news. We'll show you that updated photo in just one second. The image there. But the squall line here, I mean, it's carrying with it very heavy downpours, very strong winds, and then a potential for some hail and even some water spouts along shorelines. So we do have these watches in place issued by Environment Canada, and it has expanded to include now the city of Sudbury and areas around that. So just a heads up, inclement weather is on its way. If it hasn't arrived already, take cover. And if you know anybody on the outside, tell them to take cover immediately because it's potentially dangerous weather. Here's your squall line. This is a cold front, by the way, coupled with those really hot and soupy temperatures we have going on. The yellows, this is your more intense weather. Yellows and reds, very heavy downpours. And I mean, this squall line spans a good 100K. So it's going to be over you for a good hour, I'd say, and it eventually will be making its way into the rest of southern Ontario. For the GTA, time-wise, we're thinking late evening, before midnight, so between 9 and 11 p.m. That's when it'll be arriving for us. All right, have a look at these temperatures right now. It's hot and soupy. It feels like 35 for a lot of us in southern Ontario, and gusty. More on this coming up. Now, scary looking skies, and I tell you, that squall line is moving in very quickly. Kasia Bodurka with you here with a look at this cold front that's bringing us very inclement, potentially dangerous weather to southern Ontario. Watches and warnings in effect right now. You can see the yellows in the squall line. That's your heavy downpours, very strong winds associated with that as well. You can see Godbridge, the Highway 21, all up and down the shorelines of Lake Huron. You're all going to be impacted by this, including Grand Bend and Sarnia, where we do have a severe thunderstorm warning and watch in place. So here's a zoomed out view at the squall line. So this was all prefrontal stuff that we had earlier today in southern Ontario. I know we had a brief thunderstorm. This, though, is your feature presentation, and that's going to be moving in, well, depending on where you are, right? If you're in the GTA and you're watching, you're concerned about these thunderstorms, more so after the 9 p.m. hour, 9 to 11 p.m., depending on how quickly these are moving. They're starting to pick up some steam, though. They could still get a little bit more intense, these thunderstorms. And because of that, we need you to take cover immediately if you are anywhere along the shorelines of Lake Huron. So here's a look at your severe thunderstorm watch that's in place. Some of the watches have been dropping, so that's good news for Elliott Lake. Sudbury, though, now you're in this watch. If you're seeing any of this active weather, ominous. This cold front is capable of producing extremely strong winds, some small hail, so dime to nickel-sized hail, those very quick downpours as well, and the possibility of water spouts too. We're not ruling that out. Kasia Bodurka with you here. Here's your cold front. That's going to be making its way across southern Ontario, really. And we do have an extension in the severe thunderstorm watches that we've been watching. So now it does include London and Stratford as well, all up and down the shorelines of Lake Huron. Also, it does include areas to the north of Lake Superior, and it does include the Nickel Belt as well. So just, heed these warnings and take cover if you're in any of these areas, because your conditions are ripe for some severe thunderstorms. Meanwhile, for you in southern Manitoba and central portions of the province, the Interlake region, you have been seeing some relentless storms, really. It's been lasting all day. But they're your garden variety, type of storms. So we haven't been seeing anything too severe with this, and that's great news. On this long weekend, the last thing anybody needs is inclement weather, but the risk continues to be there right across the prairie provinces, especially to the north of the Yellowhead, where we do have this trough of instability. Also, the foothills could be picking up some hail into the evening hours, not ruling that out. Now, interior portions of BC, it's very pop-up in nature and very isolated in nature, but areas marked in yellow here, you do have that risk of isolated non-severe thunder showers, and tomorrow that's going to organize itself a little bit more, and it is cool right across the west. Anywhere Thunder Bay and to the west of that, temperatures below seasonal, and here to the east, temperatures above seasonal. It's hot and soupy, and that's why we're seeing more severe weather pop up, like in New Brunswick here. These particular storm cells, they've been bringing down some pretty heavy rainfall. We've been seeing they have a history of producing about 40 mils in just an hour, and they continue for areas along coastal Charlotte County as well as Gramanon, and you continue to be under severe thunderstorm watch and warning. So we're kicking off this first day of September and this first official meteorological day of fall with very summer-like storms. We have a number of them bubbling up in southern portions of New Brunswick, and they have been for a few hours now. So areas that you see here on radar, it's starting to dissipate, actually. You can see that in the last 40 minutes. That's how long our loop lasts there. The deeper reds and the deeper yellows, that's your heavy downpours, is starting to dissipate, but we still do have severe thunderstorm watches and warnings in place nonetheless. So places like Grand Manan, as well as St. Stephen, and then coastal regions of Charlotte County. Just a heads up, you do have those storms still in your vicinity. Seems to be relentless, really. Now in Ontario, this is the feature presentation. This is really something that we're concerned about here at the Weather Network. This cold front, it's been going strong for hours now, but actually, as you can see here too, which is a good sign, it's starting to break up a little bit, especially to the north of Lake Superior. So Sudbury, you are under severe thunderstorm watch. We'll get to that in just one moment. But now for areas up and down the shorelines of Lake Huron, this storm has arrived, and it's capable of producing damaging winds, very heavy downpours, and then small pea-sized hail. So that's potentially dangerous weather. And back, 2 years ago, it was a water spout that produced a tornado that moved into the Goderich region. I'm not trying to, fearmonger or anything, but that squall line actually has history of producing tornadoes stateside. So just a heads up there. You just want to take cover if you're in any of these areas and you're starting to see the ominous skies. Taking a closer look, we zoomed in a little bit for you, especially if you're in the Sarnia area, because this storm has arrived. And I just got a tweet from one of our followers, our friend Lena. Hi, Lena. She's saying, do I take cover? I'm in Windsor. Is it ever hot? And unfortunately, it's going to still be hot after the passage of this cold front. Yeah, it's not going to do too much, not living up to its name, but it will last a good hour, the heavy downpours. Speaking of how hot it is, these are your current temperatures right now. It feels like 38 right now. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that Lena talked about how hot it was. Stay safe out there, and more on this coming up. across Ontario and New Brunswick. First, taking a look at the squall line that's bringing those thunderstorms across southern Ontario and northern Ontario. It's breaking up a little bit to the north. Still do have some watches in effect there. And then anywhere Wyerton all the way down through to Windsor, we do have that storm moving in. That's a cold front, by the way. That is the main storm. And right now, areas under a severe thunderstorm warning include Windsor, Leamington, Essex County, Chatham-Kent, Watford, Sarnia, Petrolia, and eastern Lambton counties. So these places that I mentioned, they are under a warning, meaning it's imminent. It's happening now. Everybody else, the ripe ingredients in place to produce severe thunderstorms. And with those, I mean, we're seeing nickel to dime sized hail, as well as very strong gusty winds and very heavy downpours. It should last about an hour. And then in behind that, temperatures aren't going anywhere. It's still going to be hot. And then we're starting to see another line develop in behind that. In the meantime, for you across the prairies, I mean, it is spotty, it is isolated, but rather consistent, these thunder showers, but they're garden variety. You know, they're not too severe, but still just enough to put a damper on your barbecues or anything that you want to do on the last day of your summer vacation. Kids, I know, I empathize with you. Even though I've been in a studio all day, we do have a pretty vast area that has a risk of seeing a non-severe thunder shower this afternoon and evening across the prairie provinces because of this trough. And you too are included along the foothills into Calgary. Interior portions of BC, pop-up thunder showers possible there, and across New Brunswick, still storms, and I will be giving you updates on this and warnings coming up. Don't go anywhere. I hope you enjoyed your long weekend and were able to celebrate and do whatever it was that you wanted to do on the outside, because weather has been deteriorating consistently throughout the day, at least for southern portions of New Brunswick, southern and northern Ontario as well. Portions of that region, well, you're going to be hammered if you're not hammered already with some active weather. First, taking a look at what's happening in the east. So these clusters of thunderstorms, they're actually fizzling out quite nicely, but if you do live in Grand Manan as well as portions of St. Stephen, actually it looks like your watches and warnings have dropped. So there you have it. That's good news for you. We've been watching those thunderstorms dissipate. But we do have webcam images of Godrich, as usual, you know, in the next half an hour to hour, actually. And temperatures, by the way, they're not dropping by a whole lot. Cold front not living up to its name. It's still going to be hot and humid, and behind that, still temps feeling like the 30s for a lot of us in southern Ontario. And then we are watching the potential for another line of thunderstorms, and behind that, we'll have more about this coming up. But first, Mark Robinson, he's been chasing this storm. Here he is.
Well, these storms are very strong.
All right, keeping it safe. Storm hunter Mark Robinson, we'll check in with him a little bit later. Meantime, if you do live along Lake Huron and pushing further inland, we're talking about London, Stratford, you're now included in this severe thunderstorm watch. Take cover if you do see the ominous skies, because as you just saw back there, you know, the very strong winds, dime to nickel-sized hail, that's a potential, and very, very quick and heavy downpours. Should last about an hour once it does arrive, and I mean, it is on your doorstep if you are in Windsor, for instance. Anywhere up and down. The 402 is impacted, the 21 as well. Take cover through these areas. You don't want to be on the outside. If you know anybody on the water or outside camping, tell them go in immediately. Temperatures still hot right now. Even in behind that, I mean, we're still seeing temperatures quite intense. It feels like 35 for some of us. It feels like 38 in Windsor still. And the wind gusts, well, they're dying down in southern Ontario, but they could ramp back up. More. Oh, the unofficial end to the summer. I'm just full of the good news because we still continue to have thunderstorms, very summer-like ones, actually, especially in Ontario, and we'll get to that very shortly. But first, we're starting to see some thunderstorms dissipate quite nicely for you in southern portions of New Brunswick, but still, the risk is certainly there. Areas marked in yellow, you still could see a pop-up thunder shower through this evening. Now, in Ontario, it's a different story. We do have a cold front that's moving through the region. It was a little more potent a few hours ago, but it has arrived, and we do have watches and warnings in effect. That's where we find Mark Robinson. He is live in the Godrich region. Mark, where exactly are you? You're clearly getting drenched.
Yes, you know what? I finally get to say, I use this term gets said to me all the time. You should have been here 5 minutes ago. But now, I think the rain's actually letting up back inside to you.
Love it. You can't get more live than that. Thanks so much. You know, we have Mark Robinson out there, the storm hunter. He chased it down, that's for sure. And current radar returns, I mean, they're essentially telling the same story that Mark was. They're moving through the region. They have arrived. That's why we do have severe thunderstorm watches up and down the shorelines of Lake Huron. The Sudbury one, I believe these are starting to drop too because the storm is losing steam a little bit further to the north. So we're really now keeping an eye out for areas a little to the east of the shorelines as well. So now it does include the city of London as well. You're all under a severe thunderstorm warning because it's pretty much on your doorstep. So we're seeing the yellows and the reds. Those are your heavier downpours that just drenched Mark right there. And that coupled with these warm temperatures, I mean, still more severe thunderstorms or a possibility of severe thunderstorms. Hard to believe. Back to school already. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about those storms, by the way? Southern Ontario, Northern Ontario, where you're seeing the deeper colors, this means you're seeing more thick, higher clouds. And when there are higher clouds, it means there's more precipitation. It's bringing down active weather, and that's certainly what we're seeing. So well defined is this cold front here in southern Ontario. This offshore low making its way out of the east coast. You can say goodbye to your active weather, and then take a look at all this clutter here over the prairie provinces and the west, really. Plenty of instability there, and because of that, we do have the risk of non-severe thunder showers for interior portions of BC, as well as northern and central portions of the prairie provinces, southern Manitoba. I know you've been seeing a lot of pop-up thunder showers throughout the day today, but the feature presentation really is this cold front moving through southern Ontario. Its greatest, feature that it's bringing is the heavy downpours. It's not even bringing gusty winds at this point, at least according to Mark Robinson, who we just went live to in Godridge. But all of us do have the risk of non-severe thunder showers, isolated severe, though, through central portions of southern Ontario. Also for you in New Brunswick. More on this coming up.
Visit